Hello, we are here with Connie Cooper of Saorsa Studio of Beads, shop number 314B at the Texas Renaissance Festival. She is going to do a little demonstrating here in her shop.
Hi. Okay, so this is Connie Cooper, and I'm going to make a set of earrings today for you so you can see how it's done and what actually goes into it. This is called a mandrel. Oh, and by the way, we're working in glass, just in case, because I'm new at this. Okay, this is called a mandrel. You'll see that on the end of it, it's got some white fluffy looking stuff. That's to keep the glass from sticking to the steel rod that I use. And this is a rod of glass. This is how a bead maker makes beads. This comes in all kinds of colors, and maybe at some point Dan will give you a shot of all the glass over there. So I'm introducing the glass to the flame sort of slowly while I'm talking. The idea is to heat it up slowly, because if I go too fast it'll crack. And we want to get the mandrel and the glass approximately the same temperature. And I'm going to introduce the glass to the mandrel slowly. I'm going to do 2 beads at once, so once I start doing that I'm going to quit talking. Then I'm going to wrap it with some fine silver wire. Fine silver is pure, and it will melt down on the glass and make a little line of dots, and it's just basically for decoration. So first thing I'm going to do is make a footprint of the glass on the mandrel, and that will give me the basis of the bead and the size of the bead. And the idea is to get 2 approximately the same size. So got one down. As I add glass, the bead will grow, obviously. You'll notice that the glass always wants to keep moving, so I keep rotating the mandrel to keep the little beads round. And get that guy on there. Okay, so I've got 2 little beads, little tiny weeny beads, and if I wanted to I could just call it quits and I'd have 2 little itty bitty beads, but I don't want to do that. I want to make beads that are about, I guess they're about 12, 14 millimeters. So I'm going to add glass to each bead, and I do it one and then the other ones. That way I can keep track of the size, more or less. And you'll see I'm just kind of globbing it on here. It's really important that I keep the mandrel rotating because glass is actually a liquid. It's called a supercooled liquid because when it's cold it appears solid, but applying heat, as you can see, makes it molten and it moves. And gravity can either be your best friend or your arch enemy. So we want to keep gravity as a friend and keep adding glass. It's also important that I keep the heat consistent. What happens is the exterior of the glass cools faster than the interior, and that causes stress. It's the energy trying to release itself. So I have to keeping the bead rotating in the heat. And I'm just still building. I'm going to build up a couple of discs and then we're going to melt it down into the bead shape. This does take a little time, so this is what goes into making all the beads that you see in the world. Excuse me, unless they're furnace beads. But all handmade beads are built this way. Okay, I've got to shut up now for a few minutes because I have to get this sized. It's just to that point where it's just about ready. And once it's rounded out, I don't want to have to mess with it too much because then I'll lose my shape. That should do it. Now I'm going to round it out with the other hand. And I may have one a little bigger than the other. Can you see that, Dan?
Yes.
So here we go. One of the best classes I ever took was with a fellow named Jim Smirchich. And there's something that stuck with me all those years. Is the way to make a bead is to build a disc and then round it out. And my mantra is bagel, 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 bead. And when I hit bead, it's done. So we're still in bagel here, but I want to get the other guy down a little bit. I may have to add a little glass to this again. You'll see it doesn't always stay round. The idea is to kind of use the heat to move the glass. The glass will go where the heat is. So if I want it to go down, I apply it to the bottom, and if I want it to actually kind of gather on the top, I move the bead down, and it's starting to round out. Warm this other guy up, because if I don't, he'll crack when I put heat on him.
And how long have you been making jewelry, Connie?
In different incarnations most of my life, but professionally since about 1991.
And as Connie works on her bagels,
Oh, we're getting the
this
bead.
is the different glass sticks. Was there another word that you like to call these?
We call them rods.
Glass rods that she uses for making her beads.
Okay, we now have 2 beads. Pretty close to the same size.
And what will you do once you're finished with those beads?
Okay, they're
Connie?
going to go into that red and green box up there. That's a kiln. It's called an annealing kiln. And that allows the glass to cool at a controlled temperature down to its stress point, which for this glass is right around 800 degrees. It drops its temperature a few degrees per minute. And I always think of it like if you're on the highway and you're going 55 miles an hour, and everybody's going 55 miles an hour, and there's a stoplight, everybody slows down at the same time and comes to a nice stop. If you're going 55 miles an hour and there's an accident and you have to slam on your brakes, there's a wreck and it kind of goes back down through the traffic. So the same thing works with the beads, or with the glass. The molecules are moving really, really quickly while they're hot. And if you let them cool too quickly, it causes stress and the bead will crack and break. But if you cool it down slowly, you can pretty much throw them around the room and not much will happen to them.
It's a delicate process, or else you've wasted all this time right here making the beads.
Yeah, and that does happen. Okay, over here, I don't know if you can even see it, but this is fine silver wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around this bead and then just melt it a little bit so that it sticks to the surface. There's one. And you can see it kind of bubble up there. That's what silver does when it melts. Oops. And there you have a pair of
that's
silver
beautiful.
earring beads.
That's wild.
So I want to get them to the point where they're not going to slump in the kiln. And I do that by just cooling them out here in the cooler part of the flame. The flame actually extends out to about here, but you just can't see it. So I'm going to put it out here in the cooler part of the flame so that it's still getting surface heat, but it's not heating the insides of the bead.
Right. Okay.
And that makes it so that I can put it in the kiln safely and it won't go blah. That's a technical term, blah. Alright, and if you're quick, you can get a shot of them in here. This is where they live until they're cooled off.